start with the issue regards the Labour Union and the FCT Minister. Now, the leadership of the Organised Labour and the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, have reached a consensus over the ongoing dispute that has affected activities in the nation's capital in recent days. The two parties sheathed their swords after a marathon meeting convened by the chairman of the Senate Committee on FCT, Mohammed Bumoy, which lasted for more than 3 hours. The Organised Labour had earlier insisted that it would not go back on the planned massive protest to press home the demands of the FCTA workers. By the reason of this agreement now, all outstanding cases at the National Industrial Court would be withdrawn immediately, and all workers in the FCT have been directed to resume duties immediately. So joining us tonight to discuss this is Amechi Asuguni, former Deputy President, NLC. Thank you so much, sir, for gracing our studios.
You're welcome, Lekon. Thank you.
I mean, it's nice to finally hear that a positive story is coming out from the so-called labor impasse between the labor unions and the FCT minister, some sort of a truce being reached. But then, do you consider a court order barring planned protests by labor unions a violation of their rights?
You know, there's nothing we have not seen in this country, and that is why whether a court order is obtained through procurement, is obtained through the black market, whatever they do, labor is consistent in following the procedure. And the procedure is to notify government and the security agency of the need for protest. Protest is not just lawful, but a recognized instrument that assists democracy. So when we hear government or employers of labor making extra effort to restrain organized labor or the masses, as the case may be, from protection of what they consider as anti-people or possibly reaction to correct abnormality, it becomes a serious concern that what I read an article where the police was insinuating that in order to maintain public peace, they needed to restrict to obtain that order. The question is, which comes first? Which is the threat to public? The abnormality, or rather the failed continuous neglect of the government that result to failed negotiation, or where employers refuse to comply to terms of agreement reached to the extent that the workers become frustrated? Do you know the cost of strike? Do they know the cost of protest? These are responsible men and women going on the street to demand for their right. It's a shame for any nation that allows protest to be the only yardstick upon which they respond to workers' need. And for me, so when matters resort to protest and strike, government should do everything possible. For example, now, what has shielded this strike? Is it the order of the court or the dialogue that has shielded result? They have done the needful. Including the notice to go on protest, is still telling you that there is a room, a final room, upon which your seriousness can actually bring result that can actually shield away the protest. I have led protests in this country repeatedly. I know the cost, I know the risk, I know this, the time is consumed on anybody, no matter your capacity. It takes a lot of resources to deploy protests. So when you hear labor making protests as a last chance, it's actually frustrating. And it gets to a long time that people begin to say, no matter what happens, we must drive home our demand. So for me, it's a win-win situation, and I also salute the wisdom of the initiator for that very meeting.
Okay, so we're still going to come to the issue around failed agreement, but then are there labor laws or part of the labor law that actually protects workers when they decide to embark on industrial action?
You know, as you have it in ILO conventions, and the top of it all is a Supreme Court judgment in this same country, right to organize, right to belong to the trade union of your choice is given by law. And this same matter years back was also taken to the Supreme Court to decide whether workers have a right or not to embark on strike action. And it was decided in favor of workers. It's an instrument put in place for the workforce. Because otherwise, any democratic culture that is not checked by instrument of that nature will fail. Because this is a country, we say developing country. Look at what is happening everywhere in Africa, where people want to use whatever it costs them to remain in power. And then who now tells you that if workers have no room that accommodate it lawfully, that they can process on strike, believe it or not, we will be living at the discretion of employers. Because whether you like it or not, whether public or private sector, they are one. And I'm not seeing the case of FCT as about Nyesom Wike. It's about organized labor vis-a-vis the employer of labor. So whatever Wike does will be duplicated by other states. Should they allow the unlawful culture of not paying workers their due allowances and salaries? Other people will copy. So for me, it's lawful to proceed on strike. It's lawful to, in fact, protest is lawful in Nigeria. The issue of strike is different from protest. Protest has been lawful, it's constitutional. That workers, in fact, it complements democracy in this country. That whenever members of the society feel uncomfortable towards any policy, they should proceed on protest, having notified the appropriate authority to do so.
Okay, so now we look at the issues that led to the strike, because you talked about agreements not being reached and compromises not being made. Now, the FCT minister, in an official letter, or should I say statement, said that out of all the demands being tabled, 14 have been, implemented. They've been reached. They've been addressed, and that others are currently being reviewed for it to be addressed too. So when we see an FCT minister who have, according to him, done due diligence in meeting workers' demands, should I say 70% of it, what now still makes such a protest valid?
One of the things that makes protests, it doesn't matter the title of subject matter to proceed, is when workers are not respected. When we tell you that dignity of labor is a priority, you never can tell. When they say respect is reciprocal, the approach towards dialogue is vital. And then how you communicate to labor leaders matters in agreement. So you don't just say you have implemented 70%. As a matter of fact, the issue of law, issue of agreement has nothing to do with your discretion to determine how much you implement. If it's my right to achieve what I have, you should give to the workers.
But that's a work in progress.
No,
70%.
Work in progress about 70%. It means that the remaining 30 will also be in the pipeline to the knowledge of all parties. You don't tell me that you are working on it when it's a matter of implementation. Some of these things, ego can come in. Pride could actually cause what should have been managed on the table to be seen on the street. So I believe they would have been show of power unnecessarily. If not, I know very well that labor at all time and all level, state, federal, and all the rest, have every instrument we have that he who fights and run away needs to fight another day. When we bring that to bear, it means that you have gotten that significant percentage on your demand and you are giving room for implementation of the rest. Not at the discretion of the employer to say, I will do that at my convenience. No. Okay, well, that may be offensive.
Mr. Asuguni, some people will feel that even the labor union are being overreaching in their demands, but we are going to talk more about that. So let's quickly go on a break, and when we return, we'll continue with the conversation. So we've been talking about the labor dispute between the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike and Nigeria's labor union. And I've been talking to Amicha Asuguni, who is the former deputy president of the NLC. Do we understand that the strike has been called off as agreement has been reached? But then we're looking at some fundamental and critical areas as regards industrial action. So now, the industrial action was not premised on salaries being owed, and it was not also based on the fact that the FCT minister was not up on doing, according to reports, but but it was based on arrears not being paid. Now, do you see that as an issue for you? Because it seems as though this is a minister who is working, but is armstrong because he doesn't have all the financial might to meet those demands or those demands being requested for. So how would you frame it in terms of his performance and his body language to these demands?
You know, every liability is a duty. And therefore, whether it's caused by current allowances or salaries, arrears is even the worst thing that should happen to any worker. Arrears mean that such group of workers have been denied for a period of a long time. And no wonder the public will understand. So you can't tie it. The highest the minister will say is that possibly some of these things he inherited them. And it's the most reason, it's the more reason he should let. The only way to prove that you are better than your predecessor in governance is to actually act on those things you could not act on. You can't be carrying out giant projects and then the human capital is being neglected. Then people will see you that you are more political than the welfare of the workers. You can't treat workers' welfare with politics because you know very well that possibly in writing your achievement, you don't want to write about paying off workers' salary. For me, the workers that will vote for you, vote for your party, are those ones that feel that you have treated them fairly. So I believe that deniance or refusal to comply or to pay workers due at every given time is an offense in the trade union, in fact, in the industrial relation practice.
But infrastructural projects will bring about economic growth, and that would feed into revenue. More revenue into the FCTA's purse, more revenue to be paid if there's going to be an increase. The minister said that before he came in, the FCTA was making about 9 billion. But since he came in, it's been about 30 billion. So that, even if there's going to be some sort of increase in salaries or a moment, or maybe demands being met, he has to start from somewhere, build the capacity to now feed into the demands of the workers, don't you think?
Yes, I agree. We agree. FCT should look new always. We should rebrand our FCT to wear the face and possibly doctor the image. But I tell you, any nation that prioritizes such humongous projects or possibly try to tie value to infrastructure as against the well-being of the people, you have prioritized wrongly. Because if there is nobody to actually leverage on this infrastructure, the economy will make no sense. The economic value starts with human being and will develop at the pace of the increase of the population. We can't have population drowning and then we're building roads. For who to apply? So I believe that whatever we are doing in the FCT should also be witness, the first witness of Honorable Minister's project should be his workers. And if you cannot prioritize your workers, it means like you are not fair.
Which one gives more economic value, recurrent expenditure or capital expenditure?
No, it depends. Because capital expenditure can also attract recurrent. And we are not paying for nothing. Don't forget, these workers are workers that are giving room for such project to be achieved. You are working with people in order to develop. So part of the reason you see people undermining workforce in this country is that they are afraid to utilize the strength, the capacity of the workers to yield development. If not, there's no way, if these are workers you are truly putting in forward to get the infrastructure in Abuja, there's no way you neglect any of them. But rather you will see government hiring consultants to do the job of their staff and then pay consultants and ignore workers. It will definitely possibly create misfeelings among workers. So for me, whichever way you look at it, if it was not viable, if it was not profitable, they wouldn't have made that kind of debt in the first place. So you are owing workers, we need to pay the workers. That is the only way you can attract development that will be appreciated by the people. We appreciate development, but I tell you, infrastructure is designed in such a way that it will meet up the human demand. The human welfare,
okay.
Eventually.
All right. So now let's look at the current labor union leadership. Now, they're being perceived as one or a set of people that are always on the edge of embarking on a strike. without actually exhausting all diplomatic channels for dialogue. Do you think that this crop or this set of leaders are actually championing the cause of the workers in the right way?
You know, dialogue, strategy to dialogue is not on one side. Strategy to dialogue is designed for two parties or more. And therefore, when you engage, you give room for engagement. And I believe anytime you hear labor propose strike or protest, I want to believe that a procedure of dialogue has failed. And the promise today, tomorrow, coming back to a meeting without nothing on the table, when you see government that they are playing on intelligence, don't forget these workers, leaders, they have organs. And every organ has its powers and limit. And such, when they report back to some organ, the decision may change the narrative. So issue of strike, you should know the size of this country. And if you agree with me that demands are too much of workers, I will also tell you that the issues around workforce is enormous, to the extent that the trade union get report every day on their table. And I feel whatever they are doing is designed by law.
Oh, okay, so let's wrap up this way. I mean, you are a former deputy president of the NLC. There will always be labor disputes, right? So in cases where we have situations like this crop up, what would be your best advice, both to government representatives and labor unions? Because we know that it's a lot of money being lost every time there is a strike. And we need to, as much as possible, avert. What would be your best advice when it comes to situations like that?
The advice that I believe will be viable for especially the government is to ensure that the best instrument is put in place at all time with workers. Industrial relation is not a channel for everybody. Industrial relation require an expert. So government has what it takes to pay an expert who understand the behavior of workers, who understand the procedure on how to engage union leaders. Engaging them in the right of way where you bring issues that require priority. Issues of today can be discussed today. Issues that can be postponed. You know that the same workers that proposed protests, they would have been another person who met with the same workers, and they will still be patient for the next 2 months. So I believe approach matters when it comes to understanding. So going forward, government should try to employ the service of people who have knowledge in labor business, both from the Ministry of Labor down to the FCT, to the extent that when issues come of this nature, ability to resolve them, we will just hear results. Because I believe there's no issue that's not resolvable. Eventually they have resolved. So what has happened new? What has happened new? Why was this not done last month? Why was this not done last 2 weeks? So the same people, they change approach because there's a protest offer on the table. And it shouldn't be. When you allow workers to know that it's only when they stage protest that they get result, you continue to get this notice of protest always, and it can be averted.
It actually shows how government responds to yearnings and demands of the people. Thank you so much, Amaechi Esugoni, former Deputy President of Nigeria Labour Congress, for coming to the studios to share your thoughts with us.
You're welcome, Mr. Leko. Thank you.
Thank you. So when we go on a break and return, we'll be looking at the other conversation that has to do with Peter Obi, a presidential candidate of the Labour Party. That was in 2023 anyway, coming out to say that he is still in the race as we look at 2027 general elections. Now, the critical question tied around this is the obedient movement. Do they still have the political strength, relevance, and mettle to drive the conversation and, of course, mobilize the set of people that can deliver the mandate for him?